Shalom and greetings, family. We're picking up with the third class of the True End of the Age prophecy according to Yeshua, focusing on the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24. So this is class number 3. And again, if you missed the first two, they're on the His Servant's website and YouTube channel. You can go and view those, but we're going to pick right up where we left off last week. And so last week we were starting with Yeshua answering the first question that was asked of him in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 2. And we're picking up today with Yeshua continuing to ask the first question in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. So he's in verse 6 now, continuing to answer that first question. We talked about last week, he answered the first. He answered that first question, and he gave us the first seal dealing with deception. So we're picking up today with the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. Okay, so in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, it reads. Second, I apologize. So in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, it reads, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see that ye be not troubled." When you hear of these things, because ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Okay? So, in this account of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, we see here that Yeshua is speaking of wars and rumors of wars happening throughout the duration of the end of the age prophecy. But notice this, that Yeshua is stressing the point, be not troubled. Be not troubled. That the end is not yet. This is Yeshua's continued response to the very first question. Be not troubled, that the end is not yet. Allow us to highlight Scripture validating Scripture. So allow us allow us to do this. Now think about what we covered last week and the previous week about the intent and the purpose of the book of Revelation. So allow us to highlight Scripture validating Scripture through the beloved disciple John's testimony, his declaration of truth of the word of Elohim, and being shown by Elohim's angels. All of this we stated earlier in the book of Revelation, chapter 1. Scripture validating Scripture through the beloved disciples John's testimony, his declaration of truth of the word of Elohim, and being shown by Elohim's angels. As we shared earlier, this is the intent of the book of Revelation. So we will allow the word of Elohim to connect the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 6, and the second seal mentioned in Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 through 4. Okay? So with that, let us read Revelation chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 3. So Revelation chapter 6 verse 3 reads, "And when he had opened the second seal now, I heard the second beast say, 'Come and see,'" speaking to John. Revelation chapter 6 verse 4, "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth." Power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And in addition, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Okay? So, let us go now and do a deeper dive on what all of this is saying. So let us understand that this horse, remember, it starts out saying in Revelation 6:4, and there went out another horse that was red. So let us understand that this horse, as we've already determined, horses meaning movement to travel across the world. Let us understand that this horse is the second movement that will travel across the world. This is another horse. First horse was the white horse. That's the deception. Now, we talked about the color. We understood color, white meaning brilliant, this deception that's going on. So now this is another horse, a movement that will travel across the world, but it's red. So the Vine's Expository Dictionary describes the color red as fire-colored. That's what the definition for red is, fire-colored. Now think about this. When you think of war, and unrest, and when you see clippings and videos and movies of war and unrest, there is normally fire associated with it. So, this movement that will travel across the world will be associated with the color of fire, which is red. Now, the same driver is driving this movement. And this time, Yahweh Elohim gives him power. Now remember, the first horse, he gave him a bow and a crown. That was the first seal. This time, in this movement, Yahweh Elohim gives him power. And the power Yahweh Elohim gives him is to take peace from the earth. That's the power that he gave. We already identified this as being Hasatan because it's the same driver. We already identified him in the first seal with the first horse, the white horse, as him being Hasatan. It's the same driver of the horse. So this time, Yahweh Elohim gives Hasatan power, and the power Yahweh Elohim gives is to take peace from the earth. He's given that power. But note this, without peace. So he's been given power to take the peace from the earth. But note this, where it goes on to say, without peace, it says, and that they. So power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they. So without peace, they, meaning the people of the earth, should kill one another. It says, and that they should kill one another. The people of the earth should kill one another. In addition, do not miss, Yahweh Elohim gives him a weapon. First seal, he gave him a bow. This seal, he gives him a weapon. He gives him a great sword. So once again, the beloved disciple John, this is what I love about this. It's revealing to us. Yahweh Elohim sent his angel to signify it, to show it to him. So John is actually seeing power being given to Hasatan. It is at this point, it is at this appointed time, Hasatan will be successful in taking peace from the earth. This is what is given to him. So it's at this appointed time, he will be successful in taking peace from the entire earth. The beloved disciple John also sees Elohim give Hasatan a great sword. He sees him give him this weapon, a great sword. Now, the Vine's Expository Dictionary defines this sword that John sees, so we understand what John is seeing when he says sword. Let us really understand what he meant by that during that day, at that time, at that point in time, with that language that he was speaking. So the Vine's Expository Dictionary defines this sword as, get this now, for ordinary violence, just ordinary violence, or dissensions, just dissent, that destroy peace. That's the definition for this sword. For ordinary violence, any kind of violence at all, dissension that destroy peace. So this definition lines up with what the beloved disciple John saw. Without peace, because I've kind of been given power to take peace from the earth. So what the beloved disciple John saw, without peace, they, the people of the earth, will kill one another. It is of paramount importance that we understand as each of the horses and their colors are introduced. This is of paramount importance that we understand this. As each of the horses and their colors are introduced, their color, their activity begins to happen globally and will not stop until the end of this earth age. So as each of the horses are introduced, so now, last class, we introduced the first horse, the white horse. Now we're introducing the second horse, the red horse. As each of these horses and their colors are introduced, their color, their activity begins to happen globally and will not stop until the end of this earth age. Meaning that each of the horses and their colors, their activities are all happening in parallel. At the same time, each one is introduced globally, worldwide. So first, we had just deception. Now we have deception and wars and rumors of wars. We have deception and peace being taken from the earth, that they, the people of the earth, will kill one another with this great sword, from ordinary violence, from dissension that destroys peace. They're both happening all at the same time. So with this understanding, remember, Hasatan has already brought deception. So think about that. He's already brought deception. Any deception that moves people away from Yahweh Elohim, which is perfect love and peace with your brothers, that's who Yahweh Elohim is. So any deception that moves people away from Yahweh Elohim, which is perfect love and peace with your brothers, and this is called out in 1 John chapter 3, verses 10 through 16. 1 John chapter 4, verses 16 through 21. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 23. I'm just calling these out as references. We're not going to go there for sake of time today. But all of this identifies Elohim is perfect love and peace with your brothers. Anytime deception that moves people away from Yahweh Elohim, which is perfect love and peace with your brothers, it creates hatred and contention, which is what wars or unrest are created from and fueled by. So get that. When you deceive people, move them away from Yahweh Elohim, it creates hatred and contention, and this is what wars or unrest are created from and fueled by. With that being said, notice this. There is synergy with each new horse and color activity introduced with the previous horse or horses and color or colors. So get this. Notice this. There is a synergy with each new horse and color or activity that's introduced with the previous horse or horses and colors. So deception leading to peace being removed and wars and rumors of wars. There's synergy here. We should understand the Messiah is warning of the Antichrist. This is what he's warning us of. In order for the Antichrist to sustain a campaign of deception, he must remove peace and replace it with chaos. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. He must, the Antichrist, the anti-Mashiach, must remove love and replace it with hatred and envy. in order to sustain a campaign of deception. James chapter 3, verses 14 through 16. But for those that stand against the deception, chaos, and hatred, Elohim's grace will abound. So once again, we're not going to go to those scriptures, 1 Corinthians 14:33 and James 3, verses 14 through 16 for sake of time. But again, those call out that peace is being removed with chaos in 1 Corinthians 14:33. And in James chapter 3, verses 14 through 16, that love is replaced with hatred and envy. Anti-Mashiach, the Antichrist, in order to sustain a campaign of deception, must remove peace and replace it with chaos. He must remove love and replace it with envy and hate. But for those that stand against the deception, chaos, and hatred, Elohim's grace will abound. Now remember this conversation. Remember, this conversation, this dialogue, is to those that ask for Yeshua to reveal when the temple would be destroyed. Remember, he's still answering that first question. That very first question that was asked was, when shall these things be? He told them about the temple being destroyed, where there would not be one stone upon another. So remember, this conversation, this dialogue is to those that ask for Yeshua to reveal. They said, when shall these things be? For they asked for Yeshua to reveal when the temple will be destroyed. So, Yeshua tells those that ask not to be troubled. Don't be troubled when they hear wars and rumors of wars. For these things must happen, but this is not the end. Remember, we said this is Yeshua's answer. Don't be troubled. This is not the end. The temple will still not be completely destroyed when you hear of wars and rumors of wars. So don't be troubled. This is not the end. The temple will still not be completely destroyed. Yeshua shares this with them so that they do not become deceived, like those that have been blinded by the chaos and hatred. Yeshua is clarifying this, that wars and rumors of wars independently do not represent the end. Okay? Any questions about that piece right there before we move on? Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 through 4. Second seal. Okay? So now, no questions, we'll continue on. So, the Messiah continues answering the first question in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verses 7 through 8. So, let us read the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Now pay close attention here. And there shall be famine and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. The Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 8. All those things we just mentioned, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Okay? They're the beginning of sorrows. So, we need to understand what Yeshua shares about nation and kingdom rising against one another. And we need to understand what Yeshua is sharing about the order of famines, pestilences, and earthquakes, that they are different between the three Gospels. Okay? So we need to understand about nation and kingdom rising against one another, but we also need to understand the order of famines, pestilences, and earthquakes are different between the three Gospels of Luke 21, Mark 13, and Matthew 24. Now, the order of events and descriptions are used. The order of events and descriptions used are different between the Gospel of Mark 13:8 and the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. So the order of events and descriptions used are different between the Gospel of Mark 13, verse 8 and the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. And in the Gospel of Luke chapter 21, verse 11, Yeshua does not mention the beginning of sorrows as he does in both the Gospel of Mark 13:8 and Matthew chapter 24, verse 8. He shares that these are the beginning of sorrows or birth pains, which is defined in the vines as birth pains, the beginning of sorrows. So he mentions that beginning of sorrows in both the Gospel of Mark 13:8 and the Gospel of Matthew 24:8, but he doesn't mention it. He doesn't mention it at all in the Gospel of Luke chapter 21, verse 11. The mentioning of the beginning of sorrows is significant because it shares here when the tribulation will begin. It says in the Gospel of Matthew 24:8, all of these are the beginning of sorrows. So it's significant that the beginning of sorrows is mentioned here because it shares here when the tribulation will begin. It will be when all of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7 comes to pass. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. When we see these things, that means the beginning of sorrows, the tribulation, the birth pains, they have begun. This is why I keep saying we're already at that precipice of the Great Tribulation. Because we can see these things, and we're going to discuss that. We can see these things all taking place worldwide, not just in 5 places, worldwide, globally. So, this is why it is of paramount importance to understand what Matthew chapter 24, verse 7 is sharing. Because remember, we said it's different. It's different. It's different from the Gospel of Mark 13, verse 8, and it's different from the Gospel of Luke chapter 21, verse 11. So, in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, Yeshua first shares with all of the disciples that nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. That's the very first thing he says. Now, and he's speaking specifically of the nations and kingdoms of the world rising against one another. That's what we see now worldwide. We see these nations forming their little confederacies, and they're all getting together around the world. Here, the Messiah is sharing that one nation will arouse another nation, and sovereignty against sovereignty. It seems that this is all a part of the Antichrist, anti-Mashiach's plan of deception. First seal, and to take peace from the earth. Second seal, and was stated in the first and second seal in Revelation. There seems to be a part of the plan. Remember, we said there's synergy here with what's being shared. So let us read James chapter 4, and we're going to read the first 4 verses. So James chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. So James chapter 1, James chapter 4, verse 1 reads, "From whence come wars and fighting among you?" From whence come wars? Where do they come from? From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence, even of your lust that war in your members? Come they not because even of your lust that war in your members? James chapter 4, verse 2. Ye lust and have not. You lust after this stuff and you still don't have it. Ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. So you think I'm going to go out and kill something because that's what I desire, but you still can't obtain it. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. James chapter 4, verse 3, ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss. Ye ask wrongly with wrong intent, that ye may consume it upon your lust. Now, James 4, verse 4, very, very important. Ye adulterers and adulteresses. So anyone that's doing any of these things, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not, don't you know, that the friendship of the world is enmity with Elohim? So the friendship, the desires to want the things of this world is enmity with Elohim. It's warring with Elohim. Whosoever, therefore, will be a friend of the world is an enemy of Elohim. Doesn't mention any words there. Okay? So, what you should did so this is all a part of what we talked about, that the nation nation will be aroused against nation and sovereignty against sovereignty, all being a part of the anti-Mashiach, the anti-Christ plan of deception. The plan of deception, one, and to take peace from the earth, as we stated, were the first and second seals. Okay? And we have James 4 to give us some insight into that deception that they have, and the warring and the taking of peace from the earth. So then, after this, Yeshua shares, after the nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, after this, then Yeshua shares, now lock in on this, there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse, meaning different places. Now, the Gospels of Luke chapter 21, Mark 13, and Matthew 24, understand this. This is the only time in the entire Scripture, the Gospel of Luke 21, Gospel of Mark 13, and Matthew 24, is the only time in the entire Scripture famine, pestilence, and earthquake is used in the plural. It's used plural, meaning more than one. In all the Scripture, this is the only time. So this is further validation that these will be worldwide events. It doesn't just say famine singular. It says there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in different places. This is further validation these will be worldwide events. This is the only time in the Scripture they're used in the plural. Also, in the Gospel of Mark 13:8 and Luke 21:11, the events of the earthquakes, plural, are mentioned first and are followed by famines and pestilences. And only in Mark 13:8, famines is coupled with troubles. So again, like we said, the Gospel of Matthew 24, verse 7 is different from the other three. And the other three are different from each other as well. But this is why this is significant and why we're choosing the Matthew 24 account. Only the Gospel of Matthew 24:7 mentions the events of earthquakes last after famines and pestilences. And troubles is not used in the Gospel of Matthew 24. So this is the reason why, because the events of earthquakes is mentioned last, after famines and pestilences. Okay, so why is that significant? Earthquakes, plural, being mentioned last is revealing earthquakes, plural, will be happening during this time. So it will not be hard to differentiate the earthquakes, plural, from the great earthquake, singular, that is to come in the sixth seal. This will be elaborated on more when we get to the event of the Gospel of Matthew 24 and Revelation 6, when we get to that event. But it's being mentioned last, revealing earthquakes will be happening during this time. But get this. All of this gives us insight that Matthew 24 is referring to the last part or phase of the end of the age prophecy. And the reason why is only its sequencing of events, only its chronology of events lines up with the last time frame of the end of the age prophecy of the third and fourth seal in the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 5 through 6. It's the only one which is the third seal, Revelation 6, 5 through 6. So if you were to use Mark or Luke, it would start with earthquakes. The third seal in the book of Revelation does not start with earthquakes. Only the Gospel of Matthew lines up with this chronology, its sequencing of events. Only it lines up with the third and the fourth seals. Okay? So we're gonna look at Revelation now, chapter 6, and we're going to look at verses 5 through 6. So, Revelation chapter 6, verse 5 reads, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, 'Come and see.' And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand." Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. "And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, 'A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine.'" Okay? So that's Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 through 6. And we're going to do some connecting of the dots here. So, here is the third horse now. This black horse. This is the third horse or movement that will travel across the world. And it's joining the colors white, deception, the white horse, and red, the red horse, wars and rumors of wars. But this time the color is black. Now, the Vine's Expository Dictionary describes the color black as to be dirty, bad in the Latin. Now, this movement that will travel across the world will be associated with being dirty or bad. You got the same driver is driving this movement, and it is directly associated with famine. You may not see that yet, but just hold on with me. It's directly associated with famine. So let us grow and move from just knowing to understanding a few words. The first word we need to understand is the word balances. Okay? It says, "And behold, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand." So the first word we need to understand is the word balances. In the Vine's Expository Dictionary, it means a yoke, which represents bondage, oppression, a burden. So this black horse and him that sat on him had bondage, oppression, and burden in his hand. So this dirty, this black, bad movement that will travel across the world driven by Hasatan will be oppressive, a burden, bondage to everyone in the world. Okay? So we've identified the balance. So it goes on to talk about a measure. So in Revelation 6, verse 6, it says, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny." So it goes on to talk about a measure. Now, the Vine's Expository Dictionary defines a measure as a dry measure. So of something dry. So a measure is a dry measure of rather less than a quart. Dry. About get this, about as much as would support a person of moderate appetite for a day. So a measure, about a quart, about enough of a dry measure that would support a person of moderate appetite for about a day. So that's how much a measure of wheat for a penny. That's how much you're going to get. And the same thing with a barley, just enough to support a person with a moderate appetite for a day. So the definition reads, it defines a measure as a dry measure of rather less than a quart, about as much as would support a person of moderate appetite for a day, and it occurs in Revelation chapter 6, verse 6 twice. So specifically talking about this, so we don't have to say, well, maybe this doesn't mean that. No, it's specifically talking about Revelation 6, 6. It goes on to say, usually 8 chinex, usually 8 chinex could be bought for a denarius. So if you had a denarius, you could buy 8 chinex. This passage predicts, this is still the definition now, of what this means, this measure, because it's talking specifically about Revelation 6:6 in its definition. It said it's mentioned twice. So it says that usually 8 chinex could be bought for a denarius. 1 denarius can buy 8 chinex. This passage predicts circumstances in which the denarius is the price of 1 chinex. So if you have a if you have a denarius, instead of being able to get 8 chinex, you can only get 1 now. So this represents about a 90% decrease of what you're going to get. That measure, that dry measure, because that's what it's saying, a measure. But now it's saying it predicts circumstances in which the denarius is the price of 1 chinex. So it already a measure was just enough to support a person of moderate appetite. This is a 90% decrease. Famine. So let's also understand the word oil. So it says, it goes on to say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So let's understand the word oil is identified in the outline of biblical usage as, this is the definition for oil, mentioned among articles of commerce. So the phrase oil and wine is referring to not hurting the commerce of goods. So again, this is dealing with famine, a reduction in what people can consume. And it's oppressive, it's a burden, it's a bondage to everyone in the world. We're seeing that. Even here in this country, which is supposed to be a prosperous and other prosperous country, more and more people going without eating in famine. Now remember, we just shared there's synergy with each new horse and color activity introduced with the previous horse or horses and color or colors. So, at this time, there's already deception worldwide that assists wars and rumors of wars to continue worldwide. And these two assist with famine worldwide. How so? When there's worldwide deception, wars and rumors of wars can be promoted worldwide. And when there are wars and rumors of wars worldwide, it causes worldwide famine. Think about the world, the wars and stuff that are going on, the devastation we look at in Gaza. Those people are literally dying of famine. Ukraine. You've got people all over this world, other wars that are going over in Africa where people are dying for the lack of food because of these wars. Remember, we talk about this synergy. But it does not stop here. Let us continue with the beloved disciple John's testimony, his declaration of truth of the word of Elohim and what Elohim's angels reveal to him. Remember, this is the intent of the book of Revelation. Okay? So, it doesn't stop there with the black horse and famine, the 3 seals. We're going to pick up now in Revelation chapter 6, verse 7. And when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, "Come and see." Revelation 6:8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Okay? So now, we see it's this 4th seal now that we're dealing with. In Revelation chapter 6, verse 7 through 8. Now remember, we talked about the order of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7, when it talks about, there's famines first, then there's pestilence, then there's earthquakes. That's the only one of the 3 Gospels that Yeshua shared about the Trinity Age prophecy, where it's in that chronology, in that sequencing of events. So we dealt with the first, with the pestilence. Now we're going to deal with the famine. Now we're going to deal with the pestilence. Now get this. So this is the 4th horse now, this 4th movement that will travel across the world, joining the colors white, deception, red, wars and rumors of wars, and black, famine. This time the color is pale. Now, the Vine Expository Dictionary describes the color pale as pale green, which is a description sometimes used to describe a sickly person. The driver driving this movement is actually given the name Death. Still, half the time, they give him a name, Death, and has a cohort following along with him, Hell. Now, this 4th movement traveling across the world is not just a malady, but a deadly sickness. We've grown to understand in previous teachings and messages that death for all means going to hell. Everybody that dies goes to hell. This is significant, and we will connect the dots momentarily. Now, once again, we will allow Scripture to connect the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7 with Revelation chapter 6, verses 7 through 8. So, allow us now to understand the word pestilence from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. It's used there. In the original Greek, it is defined as any deadly infectious malady. So when it's talking about pestilence, that's what it's saying. It's a deadly infectious malady. So pestilences in recent history have been more and more common in isolated places around the world. So in recent history, we've had the bubonic plague and, other, Bella and, all kind of, these deadly infectious maladies. But in recent history, they've been more and more common in isolated places around the world. But now, after the 400-year prophecy has been fulfilled, we see global malady. We see global malady, pestilence, pandemic. And if you've not seen the 400-year prophecy series, you're encouraged to view it on a servant's website or a servant's YouTube channel, because it's significant. That is a point in time when Elohim states that he will judge nations, to be able to truly understand when that time is, how it coincides with what's happening now, will be very enlightful for you. So, after the 400-year prophecy has been fulfilled, we see global malady, pestilence, and pandemic. Okay? Once again, we highlight pestilence is listed in the order lining up with the last time frame of the end of the age prophecy of the fourth seal of Revelation chapter 6, verse 7 and 8. So, pestilence used in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 7 is listed in the order lining up with the last time frame of the end of the age prophecy of the fourth seal of Revelation chapter 6, verses 7 through 8. Neither the Gospel of Mark 13 nor the Gospel of Luke 21's order, the chronology lines up with the fourth seal as this one does. Now, let us not miss that once again, the beloved disciple John witnesses power being given once again, because remember, he's already been given power to take peace from the earth. Now, the disciple John witnesses again. Once again, he witnesses power being given by Yahweh Elohim to both. It says to them, both death and hell. And notice the power that was given unto them. It explains why death and hell are placed together. If we notice the power that was given unto them, the power Yahweh Elohim gives death and hell is over the fourth part of the earth. The fourth part of the earth, and it's given to kill. So this is the power. He gives death and hell over the fourth part of the earth to kill. But, pause for 1 second here. This is not geography, though. When we think about the fourth part of the earth, we try to line up, okay, well, where's he talking? This is not geography, as some may believe, but 4 methods by which to kill, to bring death, and place those that die into hell. I'll say this again, because this isn't self-intuitive, to really read what it's saying. It says the power Yahweh Elohim gives death and hell is over the fourth part of the earth to kill. But this is not geography, I'm saying. This is not geography, as some people may believe. But 4 methods by which to kill, to bring death, and place those that die into hell. That's why hell is with death. That's why we said, if you understand the power that was given to them, you understand why they're placed together. Because all that die go to hell. Now, and I want you guys to think about this, and if this doesn't make sense, you must speak up, because you need to understand this. But I'm going to give you some more information here for you to be able to follow me. Now, the Concordant Literal New Testament with keyword coordinates shares. That's a book. It's a New Testament Bible, basically, that reads this way. So the Concordant Literal New Testament with keyword coordinates shares in its introduction. So this is what it shares in its introduction. It is a translation that agrees as closely as possible to the original language of the Scriptures, and yet also one that was presented in readable English. Okay? So that is the definition, that's the introduction of this Concordant Literal New Testament with keyword coordinates. Okay? And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I want us to read Revelation chapter 6, verse 8 through their rendition. Okay? So, this is from the Concordant Literal New Testament with keyword coordinates. Revelation here, Revelation 6, 8. It reads in this translation, the fourth animal. So it's lining up here. The fourth beast. Let me go up a little bit so you can see. So Revelation 6, verse 7 said, when I heard him open, I heard the voice of the fourth beast. Here saying in Revelation 6:8, the fourth animal saying, come. And I perceived, I saw, and lo, a greenish horse. Now we've already determined that that's what pale means. A greenish horse with the name of him who is sitting up on it is death. I'm sorry, and the name of him who is sitting up on it is death. And the unseen followed him. We're going to get to that unseen. It means hell. Okay? It goes on to say, and jurisdiction, power, authority was given them, death and the unseen, death and hell, over the fourth of the earth. It doesn't say part there, because when you say part, it kind of gives you that geography feel. Here you can see in Revelation 6:8, it says, and power is given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, like you're parsing it out. Here, it doesn't say that. It says jurisdiction was given them over the fourth of the earth. But it goes on to say to kill with the blade and with famine and with death and by the wild beasts of the earth. Okay? So now I'm going to give you a little more information here as to why this is what Elohim at this time has revealed to me to share. Because he says in both of these, he says the fourth of the earth. Now, if he was talking about a part of the earth, so it says, and it was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So, I have something else, and this Elohim gave me this to give a visual. I'm always being told a lot of people are visual. They need to see things visually. So, this is a chart on the number of deaths by world region starting in 1950. Today, we know there's 8 billion people on the planet. So that means that if he's given him power over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword and with famine and with hunger and this pestilence and the beasts of the earth, that means 2 billion people would be dying. We can see here on this graph that starting in 1950, there were less than 50 million deaths a year. They reached the peak here, like around, looks like 2020 or so, where it went close to 70 million people. But actually, over the last couple of years, it's dropped down to a little over 60 million people a year that die in the whole world. So if a fourth part of the world is dying, that would be like 2 billion people. That's close to an order of magnitude increase. It's over 100%, almost 200% increase in the number of deaths that would take place if he was talking about a fourth part of the world. Now, the other thing that this chart shows, which I think is really great, so if we say it's geography and it's a fourth part of the world, we see from 1950 to 2023, there's no part of the world, because it breaks it out. It's got Asia, it's got Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, North America, Europe. There's no part of what we see that would equal to a fourth part of the world where these deaths would occur. So, what we do know is him giving the 4 methods, though. So again, I'm gonna show a few more things, but then I'm going to pause for any rebuttal to what was just shared. So, allow us now to see and understand that directly following Yeshua sharing about the given the power over the fourth part of the earth, immediately after that, he gives 4 methods of death. Four methods of death are listed. So he gives them over the fourth part of the earth, but then right after that, 4 methods of death are listed. By the sword, the red horse, the second horse. By hunger, the black horse, famine. By death of pestilence or illness, the fourth horse, the pale horse. And by the beast of the earth. Now, interestingly, the word beast used in the book of Revelation is defined in the Vine's Expository Dictionary as this. This is the definition. Is used of the apocalypse for the 2 anti-Christian potentates, leaders, who are destined to control the affairs of the nations with satanic power in the closing period of the present era. So this word beast, it starts off in the Vine's Expository Dictionaries as finding them, it immediately goes to the apocalypse, the end of time, and it's identifying the 2 anti-Christian potentates or leaders who are destined to control the affairs of the nations with satanic power in the closing period of the present era. That's who it's it immediately goes to identify beasts, who these beasts are. Now, the outline of biblical usage defines beast as an animal. So, allow us to understand that man is considered an animal. So, let us go from just knowing to understanding who the beasts of the earth are that will be bringing death. They will be in the form of man. Remember, Revelation chapter 6, verse 4 already shared they should kill one another. We're not introducing anything new. When he takes peace from the earth, Hasatan, given the power to remove peace from the earth, they shall kill one another, Revelation 6 and 4. So take note of the increase of just random killings by men. Just take note of that as it's happening real time. Understand that the word kill used in this passage means to kill in any way, whatever. There is no denying that the random, irrational killing of men is continuing to increase around the world, globally. So, the 4 methods in which to kill by are by sword, which was revealed in the second seal, by hunger, which is revealed in the third seal, by pestilence or illness, revealed in the fourth seal, and by man, which is actually a pestilence or mental illness, revealed in this fourth seal. So with that, I'm going to pause and just see if again, if there's something that, you can't pull the thread through, please speak up.
So, my brother, so going back to that beast of the earth and what you read in the Vine's Expository Dictionary as those 2 leaders that are driven by satanic power to kill people over there. I'm trying to reconcile that with what you just said around mental illness of men killing men. So which is,
great question.
Is it through mental
No.
illness or is it through the satanic power?
Well, so it is the satanic power, but what we would call it, what people, so again, I'm using secular terms here. So they wouldn't call it satanic power. They would call it a mental illness. Just like we look at homosexuality. They say, well, no, that's that's something that is natural or whatever. So I'm using secular words here. No, it truly is by what you said. It is the satanic powers that will be what's the word I'm looking for? That will be leading the leading men. That's what's happening now. These satanic powers that are leading men to kill other men. But again, this is in the fourth field. This is still considered because they are the beasts. These potents that's what it identifies in the Vine's Expository Dictionary. These are the potent leaders that control the affairs of the nations with satanic power. So that's still attached to that fourth seal of the beast, of this earth killing as well.
So are the leaders the actual are they actual people, human beings, or are the leaders just that those powers, that mental illness that allows men to kill men? I'm a little confused on that piece now. So what are these leaders? What are these satanic leaders? Is that the actual movement, or is that actual leaders like Putin,
Yeah. And so, I really can't give you a concrete answer. I would say it's both. I mean, I think it's like we've read before, like in the book of Daniel, and we're going to cover some of the things in Daniel in this study, that you have the beast, and then you have the dragon. I mean, I think they're all interconnected. I don't really know how you parse them out. So I think that you have these satanic powers, which then are these potent, these anti-Mashiach potents and leaders that are spiritual, but then they give those satanic powers to people even like the Trumps of the world. Like how people would continue to vote for somebody that actually is saying he wants to do harm to them. I mean, so I don't really know how you parse them. If that answered your question. I really can't give you a clear delineated line of who they are. I think it's hard to parse the spiritual leaders and the impact and the effect that they're having on the people that are real men living on this earth today.
Okay. Yeah, I think essentially what you're saying is that those leaders are that satanic movement, those powers, and that encompasses people. I mean, you got to have somebody in charge of basically doling that stuff out, and so they come in all forms. They come in either global leaders, and they come in the form of people like us, where you have this mental illness and you just go on and killing people and things of that nature. So basically, it's movement in and of itself that takes all forms.
Yes.
I got you. Okay.
But that's a great question, though.
Okay.
Anybody else because again, I mean, I wrestle with when it says this fourth part of the earth, and like, how do we get that? I mean, there's nothing, and then he really doesn't give any kind of detail of any, like, why would one part of the earth be punished more than another part? I mean, it just doesn't add up. But it's definitely four methods there to kill by. So again, think about it. If you have any questions about it, again, please bring them to me. That's what he shared with me as of this time. But again, there is no question that these are still lining up with what we talked about the famine. I'm sorry, the pestilence, the disease, and the killing that's going on, and the other ones that we already talked about the war through the sword and the famine. So again, I'm leaving it open. If you guys have any questions or any comments, you can always circle back around. But that is what Elohim has revealed to me. And like I said, and I think, I really was glad he gave me this chart, because I think that chart really gives some feedback into, again, just the number. A quarter of the world, if it's 8 billion people, that's 2 billion. We see, that's an order of magnitude of the increase of people that would be killed, in, some part of the world, if that's what it's saying. But we don't see any place on that graph where there's any fourth part. So, so anyway, I just wanted to, again, I'm very transparent here. Again, I'm always open. If somebody has something, please be willing to share, and we'll investigate it.
Yeah, brother. The chart helped a lot, right? 60 million people a year is still a lot of people dying, but
yes,
it does illustrate that part there is not a geography thing. That it is, that's supporting information to say that it is these four methods of death. But one clarifying point, or question, right? Now, so the kill with sword and beast of the earth, what's the difference between those two? Because those are men killing men, both of them.
Right. The difference is war. The difference is war. That's why we said that the sword is associated with that second seal, where it be wars and rumors of wars. Okay. And then the sword, if you remember, we talked about that as just being when they was given a sword, that sword just means to kill. What was it? It said by just ordinary, ordinary killing, dissension, those kind of things. Or, how you see people now, they just go out, somebody shot somebody because they, came and knocked on their door or something. So that's the difference. That's a great question, though, too. That's the difference between the sword and the beast of the earth killing. Is the war versus just, you just have people, or like somebody just running through in Louisiana, running through a crowd of people and running people over and then getting out and shooting some people. That's the difference between those two.
Yeah, okay. So sword is actual official acts of war.
Right.
And then the beasts of the earth are just random killings. Like man on man,
right.
killing.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure it's clear.
Right. No, great questions. Okay. All right, we're almost done. If there's no more questions, I'll go ahead and finish out. So we're going to pick back up now with what we just shared and say that the synergy continues with each new horse and color activity introduced with the previous horse or horses in color or colors. So now there's deception worldwide, wars and rumors of war worldwide, and famine worldwide. And all of these allow for pestilence and mental illness to thrive worldwide. So let us continue to allow the book of Revelation to reveal and disclose what Elohim gave Yeshua to show his servant things which must shortly come to pass, and that Elohim sent his angel to signify, to show it to the beloved disciple John. So we're continuing with that intent of revelation to validate what was shared in the Gospels that Yeshua shared with us. So with that, we'll start with the Gospel of Matthew now, chapter 24, verse 9. And we're going to connect it with Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. Okay? So we're going to start with Matthew 24, 9. And Matthew 24, 9 reads, "Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." Okay? So this is after, all of these things that he just said were going to take place, and that the beginning of sorrows, the tribulation, is about to come. he says, after, once that happens, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Okay? Now, in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 9, it states, they deliver you up to be afflicted. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. Don't miss that point. And ye shall be hated by the world. So let us first understand who are they. Who are you? Let us first understand who are they and who are you. They are those Yeshua had warned about in the Gospel of Matthew 24, verse 5. Those that are coming to deceive in his name. That's who they are. He warned us about these people. And he said that they will deceive many, the world. Remember now, because it says, and ye shall be hated of all nations. So worldwide, this is the day that are coming to deceive. And they shall deceive many, the world. So this means that the world by now, that he's talking about in these last days in the Gospel of Matthew 24, that this means that the world by now has been indoctrinated to believe pretty much whatever they tell them to believe. Because they are going to deliver you up. So they're the ones that's in charge. That means that they have indoctrinated people for the most part to believe whatever they tell them. To put it plainly, they are the religious leaders, the leaders of political and other types of groups. That's who they are. The ones that are running things. Now, you are those of any nationality that heed the Messiah's warning of not being deceived and being troubled. Remember, he said, be not troubled. Don't panic. So that's who you are. Any nationality that heeds the Messiah's warning of not being deceived and being troubled, becoming panicked. It is significant to note that the Gospel of Matthew chapter 24, verse 9 is a shift from the Gospel of Mark chapter 13, verse 9. Because in the Gospel of Mark 13, verse 9, it reads similarly, but it says, when they deliver you up, you shall be afflicted, and they shall beat you. They shall beat you in the Gospel of Mark chapter 13, verse 9. So moving from beating to killing, after what we just read in that fourth seal, the four methods of killing. So moving from beating to killing shows that the Gospel of Matthew is speaking of the last phase of the Great Tribulation, the end of the age prophecy. Globally, all that heed the Messiah's warning of not being deceived and being troubled, becoming panic, can be killed and will be hated of the world. These signs line up with the fifth seal of Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 through 11, that speaks of the souls of them that were slain for the word of Yahweh Elohim, crying out with a loud voice. So this lines up with the Gospel of Revelation, the fifth seal of chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. So let us read Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them. I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Elohim and for the testimony which they held. Revelation chapter 6, verse 10. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Yah, holy and true. Dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Revelation chapter 6, verse 11. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, unto their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. That should be killed as they were. Again, don't forget that fourth seal. Okay? The description of the fifth seal is different from the previous four seals. And there are some interesting things to pay attention to. One thing is that there is not a worldwide movement. There is no horse. And there is no activity. There is no color. But don't forget, deception, wars and rumors of wars, famine, and pestilence are already happening at the same time globally, worldwide. But this fifth seal does not share of something happening in this earth, globally or worldwide. It doesn't share about anything happening in this earth, globally or worldwide. Now remember, the beloved disciple was called to come up to heaven in his vision. Now, the beloved disciple John is in heaven in his vision. All of the previous seals he has witnessed were movements happening upon the earth. The beasts that were in the beloved disciple John's vision would instruct him to come and see, to look down upon the earth and see the movements. Now he sees under the altar in his vision the souls of them that were slain. They were not in heaven. We just shared that death for all, everyone that died, means going to hell. So they're not in heaven. They're in hell. This is why he sees under the altar. And this is significant because Yeshua himself states that no man is gone to heaven in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 3. So again, let us read the Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 13. So we can see for ourselves what Yeshua had to say about this. And I'm not going to discount or try to rebuttal anything that he says. The Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 13, it says, and no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven. But he, meaning himself, that came down from heaven. That's the only man that's ascended. Even the Son of Man, he identifies himself, which is in heaven. So, when you die, you go to hell. That's what the scripture says. No man goes to heaven after they die. All right? The beloved disciple John sees the very souls that were prophesied would be slain under the altar in hell, pleading with Yahweh Elohim, crying with a loud voice, asking how much longer before he brings judgment. Now think about this. These are the saints, the souls that were prophesied would be slain. So you think about the people like Moses. Well, I can't say Moses. Moses wasn't slain. But you think about Abel. You think about the disciples, and all of these people that were slain. This is what he's seeing because, again, remember, this is the last days now. He sees them under the altar. If anyone would go to heaven, you would think it would be somebody like those saints. But no, they are in hell. And they're crying with a loud voice, asking how much longer before Yahweh Elohim brings judgment. Now remember, they are not in heaven, but are actually under the earth, under the altar. We grew from just knowing the understanding from the message / episode of going to heaven that the word hell used in the Old Testament / covenant is a subterranean place. A synonym for subterranean is underground, under the altar. In the New Testament / covenant, the Vine's Expository Dictionary defines hell as the region of departed spirits of the lost, but including, this is what they define hell as. Get this now. It defines hell as the region of departed spirits of the lost, but including the blessed dead in periods preceding the ascension of Mashiach. It has been taught, it goes on to say, this is the definition, by some that the word etymology meant, get this, the unseen. Remember, when we talked about that literal concordance that I was reading from, that it takes the original language, but it tries to put it in readable. Remember, it didn't say that it was death and hell. It says the death and the unseen. So again, just tying some credibility there, that it's actually taking the original language and trying to put it in a readable format. So it didn't call hell, it called it the unseen, because here it's saying it's been thought by some that the word etymology meant the unseen. But this derivative is questionable. A more probable derivation is from hado, signifying all receiving. And it corresponds to Shaul in the Old Testament. Okay? Now, so it responds to Shaul in the Old Testament, and it uses the term hell or the grave and the pit. And it doesn't use it uniformly in the New Testament / covenant. Usually they have Shaul in the text and the grave in the margin, and it denotes the grave or the permanent region of the lost. So that's the definition of hell. So what we see here is that there is no one that dies and goes to heaven. So this fifth seal is actually tying with with the Gospel of Matthew 24, when it says, they shall deliver you up, and ye shall be afflicted, and they shall kill you. So when they kill, it's talking about those that are going to be killed. Revelation 6:9-11 is talking about those that will be killed for his name's sake, and what is happening and where they are. Okay, a lot of information covered today. We're going to pause here for today, and we will pick up with the fourth class on the next Sabbath. So we'll stop here. Peace and blessings to everyone.